I may have a good news for you. Remember what I said? May. Today, we're going to talk about SRRV, Special Resident Retirement Visa, 13A visa, which is for married foreigners. We'll talk a little bit about travel insurance. And towards the end, stay with me. I may have a good news. I said may have a good news. That's what we'll talk about. Stay with me. This morning, I talked to an immigration consultant in the Philippines. He's pretty good. And he has offices in various parts of the country, in the Philippines. But even if, let's say, you are in Manila, and his home base is Cebu, he will be able to help you out also. But I asked him about some gray areas, about people frequently ask me, viewers frequently ask me about various matters. As you know, I'm not an immigration consultant, I'm not an attorney. I'm just sharing with you the experience that I had and the small knowledge that I have. People traveling from overseas to the Philippines, that's what my main focus is. Today, we're going to get a lot of answers. And there is one very important thing that I'm still waiting for him, this consultant, to send me information on that before I make it official. I will make another announcement regarding that. This gentleman's name is J.R. COCA. Again, he's based in Cebu. Towards the end and at the bottom of this screen, in the comment section, I will show his contact information, his address, his phone number, and email address. So, let's get on with it. As I said, this is a little bit longer than what I usually post, but it's because there's a lot of some issues that will need to be resolved. Let's take a look at it. The first question I have is on Special Resident Retirement Visa. Is it available for Filipinos who became a U.S. citizen and therefore now no longer a Filipino citizen?
Yes, Mr. Blogger Grandpa. The former Filipino are entitled and qualified to apply for the Special Residence Visa under the courtesy category.
Okay. What is now the minimum age? I think the minimum age before was 35 and it's so low they were planning to increase it. What is now the minimum age requirement for SRRV visa?
Okay. For the minimum age for the retirement visa right now, in general, after it was being contested with one of the senators here in the Philippines, for a foreign applicant or retiree applicant, it should be at least 50 years old and above for them to apply for the retirement visa.
So that is the current age, 50?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the current age, minimum age that they can apply.
Okay. Now let's talk about the 13A non-quota visa. I understand this visa can only be, an application can only be filed in the Philippines.
Okay. There are cases right now that the Philippine consulate offices can process the visa to their offices. But what they can actually comply later on upon their arrival, once they're given the 13A, upon arrival here in the Philippines, they will be required to submit the documents for the ACRI card of that particular visa. So in effect, there will be consulate offices can process the 13A visa, but sometimes it would be more simpler when you process it here in the Philippines because of there are actually requirements, simpler requirements rather than applying it on the Philippine consulate or embassy.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Some of my viewers said that their application is being rejected and they're being told, no, you have to go to the Philippines and apply there. And in fact, I think I know somewhere that for people who want to apply for 13A, they have to first go into the Philippines. So whether you go in under a 9A visa or balikbayan, let's say they're already married to a Filipino and therefore they're balikbayan, go to the Philippines first and file it there. But you're saying that some consulates could be processing it now here in the US? Because I also know that there is a change effective yesterday, I think. The consulates in the United States are now open. I assume no more appointment required. So that may be a recent change. What do you hear about that?
Okay. Regarding on that particular processing of the 13A and the Philippine consulate in the States specifically, they can before, but there are a lot of gray areas right now that will be that are actually happening. So what we can actually presume, like one good example of that, the 13A application for if you file it in the consulate offices, one of the major requirement is their proof of income. Here in the Philippines, once you file your 13A, we only have basic requirements like number one, the PSA copy of the marriage certificate, the NBI clearance, and the proof of income is not even required when you apply for the 13A here. So there might be complexities along the way, and that's the reason why, as I have mentioned earlier, that it will be more simpler if they will file their 13A application here. But the downside is it will take them to finish the visa for 4 to 6 months, from the visa application to the implementation of the approved visa and for the issuance of the ACRI card. Those are the 3 major steps for them to complete the visa application.
My understanding, though, is once they file the 13A, they will automatically be granted an extension, if I could call it that, to stay in the Philippines until the visa is completed.
Yes, they will be, once they file, because the setup here in the Philippines, once you actually, upon entry, for example, if someone from the US intend to apply for a 13A, then going to the Philippines, upon arrival, he will be given under the EO 408, which is a visa-free privilege, 30 days. And after lodging in the application in the Bureau of Immigration office, they are required to update their current tourist visa, which was given initially for 30 days. They need to extend that up until their 13A visa will be approved and implemented.
Got you. Now, I also understand that actually the 13A application is filed by the spouse, who is a Filipino citizen. Is that correct?
It will be filed both, because on the visa application, on the Philippine setup, there are 2 major parties involved. Number one is the petitioner, which is on the 13A, that is the Filipino spouse. And number 2, which is the foreigner applicant. So both of them will fill out together the consolidated forms from the Bureau of Immigration, and they will have also some paperwork that they need to sign together. So both of them should be present upon filing the 13A visa application.
Okay. On 13A, is there an investment required?
No.
Okay. So it's just a matter of filing an application, paying the fees and all that, and you get it. And proving that you're married and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay. How about SRRV? What is the investment requirement?
Okay. For the initial requirement of the Special Residence Retirees Visa, let's go to the basic one. When you're 50, the retiree applicant is 50, and then the minimum or the entry level of that visa deposit would be 20,000 US. That is a deposit or a bond, and will be there in the bank up until he has the visa. If he cancels the visa, then the retirement office will return the visa deposit or the bond. So that's the first. That is what they call classic, without pension.
Okay.
So the minimum requirement, then again, would be visa deposit of 20,000 US, and the one-time application fees, which will be around 1,760 US dollars. Now, on the second category, if a certain retiree applicant have or can can what do you call that? Can provide a proof of pension minimum of at least 800 USD, that particular proof of pension will require a good leverage in terms of putting down the 20,000 US dollars to 10,000 US dollars as the visa deposit requirement. Now, if a certain applicant can also provide a military service, especially for the US, and can provide a DD-214 document, and also can provide a proof of pension of at least 1,000 US dollars that he received on a monthly basis, and also can provide with a police clearance that he has no criminal record, it will go down from 10,000 to 1,500 USD. So that's the hierarchy in terms of the visa deposit requirement.
I see. Now, you just mentioned about criminal record. Is that being checked on SRRV application?
Yes, it's a requirement.
How is that?
All categories.
How is that being checked if the applicant is from the US? There is no record in the Philippines.
Okay. One of the proof of that no criminal record is either a certificate of no criminal record either from the county police, the State Department Police, or from the FBI.
In the United States?
Yes, from the United States.
Okay. So it'll be shown. And that is required for SRRV. Is that also required for 13A?
No, sir. What will be required for the 13A is only the NBI clearance, which is a national search in the Philippines only.
Okay, so 13A is only local. SRRV will require overseas certification.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the difference between the SRRV then is it's available to anyone. You can be single, don't have to be married. On a 13A visa, you have to be married to a Filipino citizen. On SRRV, there is some investment required or income requirement.
True.
But on 13A, there isn't even any income requirement, right?
Yes, for the Philippine setup of for the particular 13A visa, spousal visa to be exact, application, there's no income requirement as far as our experience is concerned. And recently we have been processing 13A as of the moment.
Okay, and no investment also. Okay, but you have to be married to a Philippine citizen. Now you mentioned something about ACR card. That's an alien certificate of registration. I thought,
yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I thought that was required for anyone, including tourists, who stay longer than 6 months or 3 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Okay, in layman's term, an ACRI card is simply an identification of all visas issued by the Bureau of Immigration. You're correct that there will be a requirement of the ACRI card when you come to the Philippines as tourists. The Bureau of Immigration will require you to pay the card if you do have the intention to stay more than 59 days. By definition, an ACRI card is an identification of any visas which was issued by the Bureau of Immigration. For example, for the tourists, they will be required if they actually stay here for more than 59 days. If a certain foreign national would also apply for a 13A spousal visa, then part of their application also is the ACRI card, which is the identification or the ID card of the 13A spousal visa application.
Okay. So what is it good for? Because I'm getting some feedback from people saying, gee, I have an ACR card. They're looking at it as if it's a visa. But to me, my understanding is it's only an ID, a registration.
Yes.
So it's not a permit for you to enter the country.
Exactly. You are correct.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay.
Because technically let's focus first on the tourist visa ACRI card. It's the validity is actually 1 year, but it does not mean that you have a valid extension for a valid tourist visa every year.
Okay.
That does not count on the situation of being a tourist. Now, in terms of the validity of the 13A spousal visa, whatever the validity of the particular permanent or spousal visa, that will also be the same validity of the ACRI card. You are correct that that particular ACRI card is an identification. It's not the visa per se.
Okay. Now, let's apply that to SRRV. They also have an ACR card, right? So they left the Philippines. When they come back in, is it enough for them to show the ACR card? Or are they supposed to show the SRRV visa?
Okay, that's a good question. On the SRRV side, since it is a special visa under the Philippine Retirement Authority, they are actually issued with a PRA ID. So they don't have an ACRI card, but they have the Philippine Retirement Authority SRRV card. Now, that is inequivalent of any ACRI card, because this is the retirement visa or the SRRV is a special visa. They don't have the ACR, but they have also an ID. Now, going to your situation, every time they enter the Philippines, they would need to present their visa stamp on the passport together with the PRA ID.
Not the ACR. That is equivalent, what you just talked about, is equivalent to a green card in the United States. That green card is required every time you enter the US. How about 13A visa? Because in this case, they do not have this, what do you call it? Philippine PRA?
PRA, sir.
Yeah.
Philippine Retirement Authority.
They will not have that because 13A is not a retirement visa.
Yes.
What do they have? They will just show the 13A visa, an ACR card, or what?
Okay. You got it correct. They should actually, upon entry, if they are on the 13A spousal visa, since, as per mentioned earlier, that the ACRI card is issued directly from the Bureau of Immigration, they will have the ACRI card. So, on that entry, if the foreigner have the 13A spousal visa, either permanent or probationary, they will have the stamp, actual stamp on their passport. Together with that is the ACRI card.
So they have to show both the stamped passport and the card. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Now, the next one we have here. Oh. When exactly do they require an entry exemption document? There was a time when when somebody is supposed to get a 9A visa and an entry exemption document if you're not traveling with your Filipino wife, for example. But now that is not required. But when is it required? How about people with SRRV and 13A? Are they required to present an entry exemption document? I know that, one thing, I know that is required if you're required to have a 9A visa. For example, if you're coming from a non-executive order 408 country, you're required to have a visa, and I think you're also required to have an entry exemption document. Right?
That's true.
What else? When is that also required, the entry exemption document?
Okay. The entry exemption document before was really coming into place when the borders are still closed. The Philippine borders are still closed for foreigners.
Oh, okay.
Now, after February 10, what is only required for an entry exemption document for now are those foreign tourists who would like to enter the Philippines coming from a visa-required country. To name a few, that would be China, India, and some other countries that needs an entry visa, which is 9A, with entry exemption as of now. And I think the Philippine immigration is already taking a look at that, taking a look at it right now for them to get rid of that entry exemption, because they might be opening the borders soon, especially for those visa-required countries upon entry.
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with this because IATF keeps on changing this, but I just want to talk about right now, as we speak, right now. Our SRRV and 13A visa, let me know if you don't know, it's okay. Are
Sure.
holders of SRRV and 13A visa required to have travel insurance?
Which resolution is that? Is that the 159 or the 160?
I think it's 160D or something. I don't know. There's so many of them. They used to
that's
they
true.
used to change every week. Now they're just changing it every bi-monthly.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, are they required? Because balikbayan who stays in the country for 1 year, Filipino citizen could be forever, they're not required. But SRRV, although they're not citizen, they're permanent resident and 13A visa. So the question is, and I don't know the answer, so I'm not questioning it, I just don't know the answer. Are they required to have a travel insurance?
I think I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure I have read that there would be a big possibility that they don't require it anymore because they belong to a category for foreign nationals who have existing visa upon entry. What they only require specifically for that 159 or 160B are those foreign tourists who come to the Philippines that they were specifically required to have the insurance.
Well, because they say also that 9A visa holders are not required to have travel insurance. They're not, right?
Yes, because that is forming part of their entry visa already. So for those specifically, I think on the EO 408 they require insurance, travel insurance. For those who have entry visa like 9A, SRRV, 13A, they will not require insurance because they're in the presumption that they will be staying here for a purpose and they will be staying here for a certain amount of time, more than a tourist would stay in the Philippines.
How about balikbayan? Balikbayan could be only staying there for 1 week or 1 month, then come back, or they could be staying there for 1 year because they're given up to 1 year, especially the
Yes.
retired people. My understanding... Say it again?
Yes, sir. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. My understanding is, if you're a balikbayan, meaning you're not a Filipino citizen and you're not a dual citizen, you're required to have travel insurance. Are you? Aren't you?
Actually, they revoked that.
What do you mean?
Few days after they make an amendment after 160B.
What you mean they don't require it anymore for balikbayan?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's good news, because I never heard that. I never did.
Yeah, there is actually a amendment. I think that's under IATF Resolution 160C or D.
Can you do
Because
me?
we have a lot of
Ca-
questions there after 160B.
Can you do me a favor? Could you email me where that is so I can research it? Because
Sure, no problem.
I cannot find it anywhere. Okay, so that's one. If you don't mind emailing that to me, because that's very important. A lot of people are complaining about that. Or are you telling me travel insurance is gone for everybody?
Not technically gone for everybody, but it is still in place, especially for those foreigner on tourist visa or under the EO 408, which is the non-visa required countries. Specifically, that is what they are trying to regulate as of the moment.
Okay, but Filipino citizens, dual citizens, and balikbayan, including foreign spouses and foreign children of a balikbayan, are not required anymore travel insurance?
For that travel insurance, I need to dig that deeper.
Could
I need to read that.
I
I
would-
need to review the 160B.
yeah, I would appreciate that. Really, I would appreciate that, because that's a big headache. Because if it's only one month, It's not an issue. But some of them are staying for 6 months. That's a lot of money. Yeah. So the other question I have is PhilHealth. Nothing was mentioned about PhilHealth, but I thought maybe the reason why Filipino citizens and dual citizens maybe are covered by PhilHealth, and that's why it is not required. But then I found out that even foreigners can get PhilHealth. First question is, does PhilHealth cover COVID? Number two, is that going to meet the requirement for a travel insurance if you have a PhilHealth card?
Okay. Talking about PhilHealth, PhilHealth basically is a government-owned and controlled corporation, basically having the objective in terms of the health area in the Philippines. But in terms of enrollment, that particular foreigner can enroll into PhilHealth if they have an existing permanent residency visa. For tourists, as far as I know, they are not accepting voluntary enrollment of PhilHealth for those foreigners on tourist visa.
Right.
Like we have a client in SRRV who opted now to enroll PhilHealth as availing it because he has already a permanent residency status here. Now, in terms of COVID, in terms of having the PhilHealth to cover in terms of their travel, I have not heard it so far in terms of their coverage. But normally, what will be playing a big role for the travel insurance right now is really attached to the travel itinerary and for your airline ticket. So those are the things that most of our clients who just arrived recently, that particular travel insurance is actually being provided by a private company, not with PhilHealth as of the moment.
Yeah, because this question came up and primarily from SRRV and 13A visa holders. They came to the States, they got stuck without their wives. And even if they're with their wives, and now they're going back home, let's say, and they're going back home, they're being required to have travel insurance when they have this PhilHealth. And I also know that some foreigners in the Philippines, if you're a foreigner, you can buy in to a PhilHealth, but it does not include certain issues. For example, heart attack. They will not be covered by PhilHealth. So the question, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's heart attack. And that's an exclusion for foreigners. For Filipinos, it's covered. For foreigners, it's not. So if you're a foreigner who opted to buy PhilHealth, you'll get coverage, but that's an exclusion. Now, the question I had then is COVID an exclusion or not? And if it is not an exclusion, then if they already have PhilHealth, why will they have to buy travel insurance? See, travel insurance is not in the country you are being insured. It is when you get out of the country, you're traveling.
True.
So it's not the travel alone. It could be, you could get a travel insurance for 6 months if you want. So while you're roaming around the Philippines for 6 months, you'll get covered by travel insurance. It's not like the baggage loss coverage. Well, baggage loss coverage is only for that trip. After the trip ends, that insurance is gone. But the medical is while you're away from home.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but I'm very interested in the one you told me about balikbayan, because there are a lot of balikbayans here, and they're so worried about travel insurance. One last question: there are few people whose problem is this. Well, not a few. There are many people. They're now required to get PSA birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, the birth certificate the date of birth is wrong, and some people, it comes back and it says no record of birth. No, okay, but yet they have the original. By the way, I'm one of those. I did it when I was here. I applied at PSA, paid I think $25. It came back to a record of birth. When I got to the Philippines,
Wow.
I tried it again. No record of birth. But I had my original. And I forced myself at the Philippine consulate in New York, showed them the original and begging them, here is the record, what more do you want? They said, and I don't have relatives in the Philippines who can take care of this and that, get a lawyer or whatnot. I don't have that. I said, I have a record here in my hand. It's up for you to prove to me that your record is correct. So I fought the consul, and I finally got it. I got the passport also. So I got my dual citizenship and passport by presenting the original birth certificate, not a PSA. Now,
Wow.
that is not normal though. I really had to fight hard for that. What is the usual routine? Would you know what is the usual routine? You have to get a lawyer to straighten that out. Why do I need to get a lawyer? Why do I need to get a lawyer when it's their fault? I have a record.
Actually, that's a good question, Blogger Grandpa, because way back 2000 going down, the Philippines set up in terms of recording, making the birth certificate still very manual. Now, the Philippines is trying to adopt already of having it digitalized already.
Right.
Now, the problem is starting most probably, number one, in the registrar's office. If to the event that your birth certificate had no record in a PSA, the first point of contact, especially for the government office, is your local civil registrar.
Mm-hmm.
If it does not exist there and there's no endorsement from the local civil registrar going to the PSA office or Philippines Statistics Office or authority, then you need to have the what do you call that? You need to have the late registration from your local civil registrar where you are born, so that they can actually endorse that to the PSA for them to have the copy.
Mm-hmm.
So the first point of contact is really the local civil registrar. I'm happy that you were able to make it in the Philippine Embassy or Consulate Office in New York. That's good. I'm very happy for you. But normally here in the Philippines, it would start from the local civil registrar. If you're in Cebu City, you're born in Cebu City, then you need to go to the local civil registrar in Cebu City, dig it up. If they cannot find it, file a late registration, and from there they will endorse that to the PSA office.
Mm-hmm.
Now, correction. The correction will also start from the local civil registrar.
Mm-hmm.
It will go back and forth twice. The local civil registrar will actually endorse a petition in terms of the correction of the particular errors, then to be approved by PSA. After it will be approved by PSA, it needs to go back to the local civil registrar, then have the one, then issue a penalty for that, and then go back to PSA for final recording, and then you will have your PSA copy available on the particular document.
Okay.
It's a long process.
I know. Oh, and some people also said to me, Grandpa, well, I have a problem. I was born in 1943, and my understanding is this birth certificate legislation did not start until 1945. So she has the same problem, no record of birth. And probably even the Philippines has no record of birth. Or I don't know what happened, if there's no record or it was destroyed during war or something. So she doesn't know how to go about it. Anyway, it's a problem.
There are, based on our experience right now, those are the common challenges that we encountered along the way when some of the former Filipinos go back to the Philippines to retire and to permanently reside here, and they want to actually regain back their dual citizenship. There are actually remedies that can be done on that matter.
Okay.
And that can be complied. Like, if there will be no record, they can get a PSA copy that is no record, coupled with affidavits, notarized affidavits, and justifications and other paperwork so that it will justify that you are actually born Filipino at that point in time, in which the recording of the Philippine government at that time is not really well organized or still paper-based.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Grandpa, I think you mentioned more on the Balikbayan, and I think you have a lot of subscribers with Balikbayan. I think I have one important thing that they should know, especially if they are here in the Philippines.
Okay, good.
Because I encountered a lot of this situation.
Okay.
Okay. Blogger Grandpa, here's one. As what I have noticed earlier, you mentioned Balikbayans, former Filipinos, and I think most of your subscribers right now, or a number of your subscribers, are Balikbayan. Now, recently we have been encountering former Filipinos who are given a Balikbayan visa, which is valid for a year. Now, most of the situations that we bumped into, they have an assumption that they will not be required, or they cannot extend more than 1 year. Now, yes, they can extend for additional 2 to 3 years. But the 3 years, actually, sometimes I get different answers from the government offices itself, but I would bank my answers on facts. If you're given 1 year and you're from the EO 408 countries, which is visa-free countries, presumably, not presumably, but they are allowed to stay here for 36 months. Since Balikbayan is a higher version of a tourist visa given to privilege to Filipino,
Sure.
they're given 1 year. So in effect, you have additional 2 years back up with EO 408 guidelines. Now,
Okay.
there are also people who assume, or former Filipino who assume that once they have their Philippine passport with them, and upon entry to the Philippines, a former Filipino, they would assume that they're already, what do you call that? Filipino citizen. No, they need to check what is their entry status, because they will be penalized if they cannot update their stay.
Yeah. I have.
And one of the things, or one of the documents that they need to bring in, especially in the Philippine immigration at the airport, especially the immigration officer, they need to bring their IC. The valid Philippine passport and your foreign passport does not guarantee that you are already a Filipino citizen upon entry.
What's an
What you can do?
What's an IC?
Come again?
What is an IC?
Okay, an IC is what you call identification certificate.
Okay.
It states there that you have reacquired your Filipino citizenship by a dual citizenship.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So those are very important, because there are people, okay, hey, JR, when I entered the Philippines 4 years ago, I have still a valid passport, and I have a U.S. passport. But they forgot to take a look at the entry date, because it's indicated there, BB or Balikbayan, or it's just a date of entry valid for 1 year. But in effect, after that 1 year will be expired, they need to extend that and update that year on year.
Okay. How about tourist visa? I understand tourist visa is only good for, say, 30 days. This is for the 408. But it could be extended all the way up to 3 years.
As of now, there's no official advisory that the Bureau of Immigration is changing the Philippine Immigration Act of 1940. So it is still on the assumption that that particular foreigner who have entered under the EO 408 privilege can stay up until 36 months.
36 months, yeah. Okay. Good. What else? That's it. We covered everything, right?
Yeah, we covered a lot
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, we did. Where do you provide service? Can you provide service to people who are, for example, in Manila? I think you said you are in Cebu, and where else? Cotabato?
Our main office is in Cebu. We have 3 branches here. Basically, one in near Ayala Mall, Mandaue, Mualbual. That's within Cebu Island. We also have Dumaguete, We also have Bohol in Alona, Panglao.
Okay.
And we are opening in Boracay.
Good.
This week.
Good for you. Good for you. You're expanding. Anything yet in Manila?
We have already our team as a receiving and processing in Manila. So we will be establishing our Manila office soon. But we are already capable of processing it in Manila.
Now, suppose there is someone who is in an area that is not covered by you. Can you help them also?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There you have it, guys. J.R. COCA is very friendly and very nice indeed. And in fact, if you go and look at his website, he's got some testimonials from clients, mostly Americans, who he was able to help. But I'm sure he'll be able to help Filipinos as well. For example, you may be a U.S. citizen, no longer not dual and no longer a Filipino citizen. You could go back home up to 1 year as a balikbayan, or if you want to stay there forever, you may want to go for SRRV. I would recommend that you go for dual citizenship. But if you want an SRRV visa instead, because you don't want to distort your US or overseas citizenship with a Philippine citizenship, and you have some concerns, or you are in the military, or you are still serving in the military and you need that security clearance, therefore the United States, for example, will not allow you to be a dual citizen, or you will lose your security clearance, then SRRV might be a way for you. If you're married to a Filipina, 13A visa might be one for you. He will be able to help you out also. Okay? So that's all I have for today. Please do click like. I'll appreciate it. And I'll appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, unless you have already done so. Thank you so much. Make it a great day, and God bless.